The Monkey by Osgood Perkins. Where do I start with this one? This movie is like if the Rube Goldberg machine inspired deaths of the Final Destination series were mushed together with the comedic tone of, that Supernatural episode where Dean keeps dying over and over again like Groundhog Day? It's those two pushed together, and I mean that as a compliment. I personally loved that juxtaposition, but I do think this is going to be like the Vegemite of movies. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. I also think that my personal feelings on this movie are somewhat inspired by who made the movie, not necessarily what was made, right? If the Radio Silence guys made this movie, and I love the Radio Silence guys, I don't think I would love this movie as much, but because Oz Perkins made this movie, it makes it more... It just fits better for me, and I'll tell you why in a second. But because this movie is about the randomness and miserable fact of death, right? This movie is about how death can happen to any one of us at any time. It's a truly harrowing piece of information, but... And I think about it a lot more since becoming a dad. Like, when I leave my family to go anywhere, this little nagging thought from this spiteful part of my brain goes like, hey man, what if this was the last time you saw them? Like, what if you never got to come home? Which is a fucking horrible thought. I'm sure a lot of parents have the same anxiety. I never used to have this before being a dad, but it's a fucking horrible thought. And the opposite, like if something happened to my family while I was out, is an even more horrible thought to me. It's so awful. But on that note, this movie is made by Osgood Perkins. Same guy that made Blackcoat's Daughter, same guy that made Longlegs most recently. Now, Oz's dad was Anthony Perkins, and if you don't know who that is, he was a 1950s teen pop idol. I'll link one of his songs in the description, because there was one that got really popular in Australia about the prettiest girl in high school. It's a fucking bop, to be fair. And he became like this sex symbol in the 60s, and then he evolved into quite a serious, dramatic actor in the late 60s, being cast as Norman Bates, the original cinematic slasher in Hitchcock's Psycho. Now, Anthony was a closeted gay man back in those days, and he was horribly maligned and horribly bullied and pushed on by the industry and by his management. Like, they said awful shit to him all the time, and they tried to force him into being seen with women, and just horrendous. They did horrendous shit back then. I'm sure lots of it wasn't even documented, the poor bugger. And tragically, in 1992, Anthony died of AIDS, complications from AIDS infection. And like that's a horrible thing to be a kid and have that happen to your father. Oz's mother, it was Berry Berenson. She was this amazing model and photographer, and who went on to act alongside Jeff Bridges in Winter Kill and Malcolm McDowell in Cat People, which is this fantastically weird supernatural horror film about werecats. Definitely check out the trailer. It's a fucking weird film. If you like stuff like Houseu and stuff, maybe check it out. But almost 9 years to the day after his dad died, Berry Berenson was one of the passengers on American Airlines Flight 11, which was hijacked and flown into the World Trade Center in the September 11 attacks. That is such a... So he lost his mum and father in these really horrific circumstances that made headlines, both of them. And that it's such an awful thing to happen to one family. Yet, when you listen to interviews with Oz, he's really articulate, he's really funny, he's really... I find him very interesting to listen to, and he's just so creative, and he's got such an eye for cinema. Like, he's got a very specific style, Oz. And I just don't think there is anyone more qualified to make a film about the horrible randomness of death and the weirdly funny circumstances that happen around that than Oz Perkins. Like, who could be more fitting to make this movie than Oz Perkins? And I heard that the original script was quite dark, and Oz got it and was like, listen, if you want me to make this, I'm going to make it really comedic. And I appreciate the shit out of that. Because I think with a lot of Oz's movies, they're quite dark and disturbing and serious in their tone, especially Longlegs and the Blackcoat's daughter. So you sort of get this sad Keanu effect, which is because we know way too much about people nowadays. We know way too much about celebrities, and we know way too much about their history, that when you see photos of them or interviews of them where they're a bit off or they're not like over the top fucking Wiggles happy, your brain automatically wants to categorize it and go, oh, they're probably thinking about that horrible thing that happened in their past, which is dumb. I know it's dumb. I still do it, and I know it's dumb, but that is what the human brain does. And it's not. They're probably just fucking tired because they're on the media trail, or they had a shit coffee, or they got a crappy car park, or whatever. But our brain goes like, oh, that poor guy, he's probably thinking about blah. And this movie, like with the Blackcoat's daughters and Longlegs, it sort of painted, I feel like most people thought about Oz as like this tragic, creative artist figure because of his past. And the monkey is it feels so intentionally close to the bone that it's so bombastic, it's so weird, it's so fucking funny and dark. It's almost like Oz saying, hey fuckface, I'm good. I'm doing my thing. This is how I cope with this sort of stuff. Focus on your own shit, don't worry about me. And as a fan of Oz's movies, I really needed that. It gave me joy to see him working in this sandpit where he's having so much fun. Everything's so crazy and over the top. It gave me joy to see him doing a pitch black comedy. And that is what the monkey is. Sure, like not everything in this movie worked for me, but the quirky weirdness of the dialogue and the fucking hilarity and cartoonish over-the-topness of the kills really did, and I think that's the strength of the monkey. Based loosely on a 1980s Stephen King short story, The Monkey follows twins Hal and Bill, who are both played by Theo James, they are orphaned after abandonment and a horrible accident. After they're orphaned, they sort of realize that there is a drum playing toy monkey that their father had that could be the source of all their woes and these accidents, and they are determined to get rid of it. Flick to 25 years later, and the estranged boys are pushed back together again when very strange, fatal accidents start occurring again in their hometown, and the boys suspect that the pale, horse-loving primate is back at it again. So basically, they get together to finish business. As I alluded to in the intro, the kills in this movie are gory and very cartoony, like very much in the style of something like Final Destination or the Escape Room franchise. They are so over the top that they sort of swing from gory right back around to like funny, even though there is some pretty gross bits in it. But that is why you come to this movie, right? You come to see the weird, quirky kills in this movie. It's just weird, gory fun. Tatiana Maslany is the best on ground for me. She plays the boy's mother, and she's so morbid. She's almost like Morticia-like. And she plays such an unconventional mother. She's so brutally honest with the boys, but you can tell she cares about them. She's so loving and sweet, even though she's saying really fucked up things to them. And that would scar kids that aren't as hardened as, Bill and Hal. But it's just a joy to watch her in scenes with the boys, like the young boys. There's in particular one scene after one of the many funerals in this movie that I just loved. It's so fun, and it shows you how much she cares about the boys, and it's my favorite scene in the movie. I won't spoil it, but it's really good. I just adore her in this movie. The style of this movie is really great. Osgood always has really good style in his movies. This has a similar style to Longlegs, even though Longlegs started in the 70s and this is supposedly set in the 90s. But because this is like an abstract reality, I wasn't too hung up on that. I was like, listen, it's just a cool style to watch. I'm cool with it. I don't need it to be like completely 90s themed. It was good. I thought it was really, really good. I fucking loved the style of this. There are also a slew of really great cameos in this movie. I won't spoil them because it's fun when you go in there and go, oh my god, I didn't know you were in this movie. They all fit the vibe though. They all do really well. Stephen King's books are often really hard to adapt, and that's because he has such in-depth world building, and he creates these realistic characters and gives them these deep emotional bonds. But he puts them in these really abstract, weird situations. And while your imagination, while you're reading a book, can process these things quite well, it's really difficult to get them to hit on screen, right? Like when you've seen something weird with your eyes, your brain does all sorts of tricks to like, it doesn't like it. So it's really often really hard to do that and also build emotional connection within a 90-minute runtime. Because The Monkey's a short story and its length and focus is quite small, I think it was perfect. I think it was perfect for the adaptation to movies. It's set in kind of an odd world where everyone seems a little bit off. Like, it is so close to reality, but there don't seem to be any like legal ramifications for anything. Everyone's sort of acting like a heightened version of a human. So I think it really works for this adaptation. I think other people who adapted the screenplay probably would have made it more serious or tried to explain the outcomes or the ramifications of the story points that happen in The Monkey, like for the greater world. And I love that Osgood was like, nah man, like this is just a weird alternate reality, we're just going with it. It's almost, you know what it's like? Preacher. If you like Preacher, this is sort of like Preacher, and I really liked Preacher. It's that vibe. So because it's heightened, you're sort of happy to go along for the ride, and I really appreciated that. The main part of this film that fell down for me, it wasn't the weirdness, it was the bond between Hal and his son Petey. Honestly, I couldn't give a fuck about the bond between these two characters in this movie. I know he's used somewhat as the motivator for Hal, but I think you could have just cut him out and the story would have actually been better. Or add more scenes that build the relationship between those two, because the only scene that does build the relationship between those two takes place in a car with a real estate agent, and it's really good. But everything else, there's no real bonding moments for them. You don't really give a shit. And I feel like that lost a bit of the punch of the movie. Also, their dynamic pales in comparison to the relationship between Hal and his mum, and also Hal and Bill. So I would have preferred a lot more exploration of those emotional bonds than Petey and Hal, because he kind of just acts like an annoying companion quest character, which sucks. It's in the book, and I've read the short story. Hal's sort of regaling Petey with the history of the monkey from his childhood. So it's sort of set up almost like the Princess Bride. So you get that emotional bond because of the way the story is told. But because they changed it so much in this, and that is non-existent, it's almost like a road trip movie between the two of them. I just didn't feel it. It's just not present in this one. So I don't think they needed to kind of shoehorn Petey in there. He's kind of annoying as a character, to be honest. There's a few things that, like comedic things, that didn't hit. Most of them, almost everything hit. Goddamn, the uncle, Hal and Bill's uncle, is fucking great in this. But there was a scene with a priest that it just didn't hit. I didn't think it was that funny. But almost everything else did, so I was happy to go along. But overall, if you like stuff like Final Destination or the Escape Room franchises or The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, like that's the vibe that this movie gives. And I think it's a really interesting character study, not on Hal or Bill or Petey, but a really good character study on Osgood himself. It's really interesting if you know a little bit about his background, which now you do, and you watch this movie. It makes it. I feel like it really adds a lot to the story. It's a really interesting perspective in how he's made this film, and I really liked it. I recommend watching this film if You love Rube Goldberg machines. Who does not? They're fucking great to watch. I watch the shit out of them on YouTube. If you love them, all the kills in this movie are like that. They're so good. Tell me what your favorite kill is, by the way, if you have seen this movie. God, my favorite one involves a real estate agent. It's really good. If you watch horror for the gore, this has everything for you. It's cartoony gore, yes, but it is so fun. If you love horror movies with an evil toy in it, Child's Play, Dead Silence, Poltergeist, the monkey really is the star of this movie, I find. They had to, hilariously, Toy Story apparently has a copyright on the symbol monkey, which is originally what's in Stephen King's book, even though it came before Toy Story. So they weren't allowed to use the symbol monkey like it is in the book. It's a drumming monkey, and it does this little cool twirl of the drumstick before it starts playing, and it built the tension so well. Like, I really liked that it did that. I thought the monkey was the absolute star in this. I do not recommend watching this if you do not like if you want a straight up horror movie. This is a pitch black comedy. This is a horror comedy heavy on the comedy, right? There is gore, but it is a comedic film. If you do not like horrors that are set in a very close to reality but heightened version of reality, like Twin Peaks is probably a good example, or Preacher, like I said before. Like, everything is like the real world, but it's just a bit like it's cranked up to 11. This has that. If you hate gore, there's plenty of it in here. It's very comical, but there are some quite gross scenes, so just know that going in, this might not be for you. Now, if you liked The Monkey and you want another fantastic movie with a creepy drumming toy of mysterious origins, it's pretty hard to go past the 2020 film Caveat, written and directed by Damien McCarthy, who recently made Oddity. If you like ghost movies, go watch that shit right now. It's so good. I will link my review in the comments. It follows a drifter named Isaac who has trauma-induced amnesia. He takes a job from his friend Mo to go and look after Mo's niece, Olga, who lives on a remote island. Olga has a health condition that basically causes her to go catatonic randomly. When Isaac rocks up to the island, he sort of realizes that there's more to the deal than he bargained for, but he can't back out now. This movie is so fucking tense. It's anxiety riddling. It is scary in parts, like genuinely scary in parts. I absolutely adore Caveat. It's also the dog-eared rabbit in it, that it drums on its little, one of the greatest horror props of all time for me. It is an all-timer for horror props. Damien McCarthy does great horror props. His best is in Caveat. I fucking love the dog-eared rabbit. Another fitting recommendation based off The Monkey is, and just because The Monkey has such fantastic kills and you rock up to watch the kills, the Terrifier franchise. Very hard to go past the Terrifier franchise if you like gore. It's got wacky kills, right? The Terrifier franchise has such wacky kills. Terrifier 3 recently came a bit of a global phenomenon. If you have seen that but you haven't seen Terrifier 2, I implore you to go back and watch Terrifier 2. You could probably skip the last 20 minutes of that movie because it gets a bit muddled, but the kills in Terrifier 2 for me are the best kills in the series. My favorite kill of all time is in Terrifier 2. It's so fucking good. It involves a bedroom. Art the Clown is one of the best things come out of horror in the last 15 years, I reckon. And if you're a gorehound, it's very hard to go past Terrifier. So go back to Terrifier 2. Go show Art the Clown and Damien Leone some love. They're awesome. But that's it. Let me know. If you've seen The Monkey, yay or nay. Did you like it? It's a bit weird, I know. But yeah, I think it was a good one. Hopefully I'll see you next week for another review. Peace.